Well, it's a beautiful day for a drive. I'm headed down to Asheville, North Carolina to visit one of the largest homes in America. Constructed in the mid-1890s by George Washington Vanderbilt, grandson of industrialist Cornelius Vanderbilt, as a country home, the Biltmore has 250 rooms of priceless antiques and works of art, and is the centerpiece of 8,000 lush acres, featuring world-famous sculpted gardens. It takes a 1,000-person staff to operate and maintain this magnificent estate. Today, I'm going to meet some of them and pick up a few tips that are useful in maintaining just about any home, not just the 250-room variety. So, we all have got screen doors or screen windows, but how many have you got here?
1,200.
1,200. Well, that may be more than the average home, but most of us have to replace those screens once in a while, and that's what resident carpenter Andy Graves is doing today. Now, I always find it a challenge getting a new screen taut enough, but I suspect that's going to be a cinch for Andy. We first pry off the molding, remove all the nails and staples, then rip out the old screen. Okay, Andy, here's the screen. It's aluminum, right?
Yes.
Andy trims the screen, leaving some excess around the edges, then secures two adjacent sides with staples.
Now, Ron, I like to put these about every 1.5 to 2 inches apart.
Okay, now you got these two sides done. Still got a little bit of a sag in here. This is where it gets tricky for me. What's your technique for pulling this taut? Andy explains that once the two adjacent sides are stapled, he stretches the screen across the width of the door and staples the opposite edge. Then he pulls the screen lengthwise to remove the last remaining ridges. So can I hold this for you over here?
Sure.
Now, how do you know when you've really got it tight enough?
When you can bounce a quarter on it now.
Oh, really? The quarter test, huh? Maybe we'll try that.
Maybe. You got a quarter?
I was going to borrow one from you. Andy places his knife in the corner of the frame and makes a 45-degree cut outward to the edge of the screen. Now he can stretch the final side taut and staple it in place. Finally, he trims off the excess screen and replaces the molding. As I say in my book, good as new or good as old when you're working on a house like this.
Yes.
You ready for the quarter test?
I guess. Let's see.
Your quarter or mine?
Well, is yours lighter?
No.
Dang.
Supposed to do?
That's what it's supposed to. It's supposed to bounce higher.
Yeah. I'd say you did it. All right. I learned something. Thanks, Andy.
Now, give me my quarter back.
Oh, sorry. Older paned windows, like the ones here at the Biltmore Estate, as well as those in many homes, rely on putty, sometimes called glazing, to hold the individual pieces of glass in place. Over time, this glazing gets brittle and needs to be replaced. Wade Ledford is the Biltmore's resident expert. Hey, Wade.
Hey, how you doing?
It's like ought to be good for some soldering, but you're about to do some work here with the glazing. How are you going to use the torch?
I'm going to use the torch to heat up the old glazing to be able to remove it from the window a lot quicker and a lot easier. Okay, I put the putty knife up against the glass, and what I'm doing, I'm allowing the heat to ride down the putty knife onto the glazing instead of hitting it directly. Okay. And this will soften it up, and this enables me to get it off a lot easier. You may have to do it a couple times to get it all off, but normally the first time it takes it completely off.
I can't tell you how many times I've struggled getting that old putty out, just trying to chip it out, and I've broken the glass on occasion.
Oh, you break a lot of glasses by doing it like that. Doing it like this is a lot easier. You can use a hair dryer, if you don't have a torch, or you can use a heat gun to use to strip paint with to do it. But always remember, do not apply the heat directly to the glass.
Heating old glazing, making it easier to remove, is a tip I'll use for a long time to come. I'm about to learn another trick of the trade.
As you see here, the glazing is real sticky. It loves to stick to anything, and really it loves to stick to your putty knife and your hands more than anything. But what I've learned to do, if I can dry some of the oils up in it, this helps me to, be able to work with it a lot better and so forth. So what I use there is just a plain old everyday.
Oh, come on, baby powder?
Baby powder.
I'll be darned. Do you put it on the on your hands or on the putty?
I put it on the putty and
Try
just
a bit.
keep working it in there.
I feel the difference right away.
Try
The
this.
powder makes the putty much more manageable. Yep, this tip's another keeper.
Okay, what I do here, I'm just forming this out in kind of a smaller round circle. And when I do that, I just place it up here and take my putty knife and I just, press it in here and keep working it and keep pressing it in until I get down here to the corner. Once I do that, then you find your angle. And what I'm talking about, the angle is where your other side comes to. And you just take your putty knife and just press down there, then just come down, take the excess off, then just smooth her up.
Oh, it's pretty neat.
The baby powder also seems to allow the putty to release more easily from the blade.
This here you did good, and I think you'd make a good worker on it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
When you visit the Biltmore, it takes a while for the sheer size of this place to sink in. 34 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, a gymnasium, and even a bowling alley. It took 135 tons of slate tile to cover the roof. I can't even imagine how many board feet of lumber were required for the wall paneling indoors. Much of the woodwork in the Biltmore is 100 years old, and caring for it over the past century has meant applying coat after coat of linseed oil. Removing it is a job that falls to preservation expert Pat Ray.
This is a beautiful oak under here
Yes,
that
it
you're sort of
is.
recovering, right?
We're taking the linseed oil and the dirt off.
That's all that's on here that's making this that dark,
That's
huh?
all that's on here.
For decades, it's been common practice to apply linseed oil with the thought that it protected the wood. But because the linseed oil never completely dries, it actually attracts dust and dirt like a magnet. The trick is to remove the accumulated dirt and oil without damaging the finish underneath. For this, Pat uses wood alcohol, or methanol.
Now you have to know what kind of wood. If it's a real soft wood, it's not a very good idea.
Okay.
All we have is oak, so it's very good for oak.
It's like, so it's just a matter of like just rubbing this back and forth. Oh, look how easily that comes off. Yeah.
After the wood is thoroughly cleaned, Pat will protect the surface with a coat of beeswax. Unlike the linseed oil, beeswax dries almost immediately and will not attract dust and dirt. The woodwork in the Biltmore Estate is testament to the skill and craftsmanship of the builders. In fact, there were so many workers, a small town was built to house them. When completed in 1895, the house was not only America's largest private residence, it was also one of the most modern, with hot water on demand, a central heating system, and electricity. The folks I met here today care for the Biltmore Estate as though it were their own. Techniques they use can be useful to many of us in caring for our own homes, even if we don't have 250 rooms.